Greetings everyone, and welcome back to this Fire Emblem Three Houses fanfiction. If you're new to the channel and or have not seen the first installment in this series, then please follow the link in the description to be all caught up to speed on the events that transpired. And I'd like to inform everyone that currently the first episode is sitting at just over 1,000 likes, so if we get 1,000 more on this episode, then I shall keep to my word and make follow-up fanfics for all 4 time-skip pathways. So please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe as well, I'd very much appreciate it. And with that out of the way, let us proceed. The events leading up to the Battle of the Eagle and Lion proceed as expected. However, during the fishing tournament, Sitri takes part in the festivities along with Jeralt, and she ends up having a really fun time, being consumed by a rush of romance and excitement at the prospect of fishing alongside her husband. Sitri even ends up winning the tournament by catching Flane's favourite fish, and the young lady is over the moon about this. Additionally, Rhea presents Sitri with a large bouquet of flowers to help lift her spirits after the kidnapping by Yaritza, and she's enthralled with how beautiful they are. Sitri then takes part of the bouquet and gives it to Mercedes after hearing about what happened to her from Byleth.
Good morning, Mercedes. Here, I brought these for you.
Good day to you, Lady Sitri. Oh my, these flowers are so beautiful. Are you sure I can have them?
Oh yes, of course. Lady Rhea may have gone overboard with the bouquet she gifted me, and so I wanted to share these beautiful flowers with you.
Sitri's expression becomes rather sad, and she speaks in a somber voice.
Byleth told me about what happened after the incident with your brother, and I wanted to apologize. If I had been strong enough to keep Flane and Manuela safe, none of this would have happened.
Oh, Sitri, there's no need to apologize. It's all in the past, and I'm just glad everyone is safe. The professor was so worried after finding out you had gone missing.
Mercedes proceeds to sniff the flowers Sitri gave her.
My, these carnations are simply wonderful.
Oh my, I'm surprised you knew what type of flowers these are, Mercedes.
I'm familiar with all sorts of plants. My mother and I used to attend the garden back at House Bartels. It was so beautiful. We had all sorts of flowers, but lavender was my absolute favorite.
That's so delightful to hear. I would very much have loved to see it for myself. I simply adore flowers. They're so colorful and beautiful with soothing aromas. They always fill my heart with joy, especially valerians.
Oh, yes! They are just to die for. Thank you for talking about flowers with me, Lady Sitri. There's not that many people in the monastery that I can discuss gardening with. Only Bernadetta and Dedue seem to share my love for it, and bless her heart, Bernie frightens easily when Dedue keeps to himself.
That's very unfortunate. I would love for all of us to do gardening together, but it's wonderful to hear you and your mother were so good at it. So please, come see me again. We can talk about flowers whenever you like.
During the weeks leading up to the historic battle, the entire student body spent more time with Sitri due to the Death Knight incident, and at this point, she has essentially reached C-rank support with all of them in terms of relationship building. On the day of the Battle of the Eagle and Lion, Sitri and Jeralt are observing the historic event alongside Rhea and Sepith. Naturally, whichever house Byleth is leading wins, and during the skirmish, Sitri gets caught up in all the excitement and becomes very enthusiastic, with even Jeralt showing more zeal than usual. Upon witnessing the happiness resonating from the two of them, Rhea smiles blissfully, and Sepith can't help but chuckle at the couple's figure, and simultaneously recall how his dear wife brought out the same excitement in him, which tugs at his heart. Once the battle is concluded, Rhea and Sepith congratulate Byleth on their victory, with Jeralt gloating that he's taught them well, and Sitri is so proud of her daughter for becoming such a strong warrior and setting a shining example for the students, with Byleth blushing at all the praise and doting she's receiving. During the celebrations, Rhea assigns both Byleth and Jeralt with their next mission regarding the mysterious plague in Rhea village, and after discussing the symptoms with Manuela, Sitri suggests that she come along since she's never been to Rhea village and wishes to help those in need, plus she boasts that her healing magic has become quite potent as of late. Manuela jokes about going along with the professor, with Sitri also playing along as they both tease Byleth. Jeralt quickly puts everyone back on track, telling Sitri that while he's not against the idea, he won't make any promises, and after leaving Manuela's office, Byleth suddenly faints, shocking both parents. After getting back up, Byleth casually brushes it off like it was nothing, and Jeralt doesn't look too concerned. However, Sitri is far more tentative to Byleth.
Sweetie, are you sure you're okay? You gave me such a fright collapsing like that all of a sudden. Has this happened to you before?
It's fine, Mother. There's no need to fuss about me. And no, this is the first time I've ever felt this way.
Thank goodness. I worry about you very much, dear, but I'm glad you seem well. Please take it easy from now on, though. If you push yourself too hard, these blackouts will continue, and that's not good for your health.
Both Jeralt and Byleth are puzzled by this and ask Sitri what she means, for it's as if she's familiar with this sudden phenomenon. But before Sitri can respond, one of the knights appears and reports that Rhea wishes to speak with Sitri, so she immediately makes her way to the Archbishop while Jeralt goes about his business. Sophis comments that she's felt that way before, and that Sitri knows something about them, noticing that this all feels very strange, as Sophis still can't recall Sitri from her past, but there's a familiar feeling that's been nagging away at her. During the month of the Red Wolf Moon, nothing of major significance happens. Everyone notices that Byleth isn't looking too good, and Sitri is keeping a much closer eye on her daughter than usual to make sure she's okay, but thankfully, Byleth doesn't collapse at any point during the following weeks. At the end of the month, Jeralt informs Byleth that they need to hurry to save Rhea Village, and that they can't wait to assemble everyone. And as they depart from the monastery, Sitri, who has witnessed the commotion from a distance, decides to follow along in secret. When they arrive, the mission proceeds as expected, taking down the possessed villagers and doing what they can to save everyone else. And as one of the crazed humans is about to slice into a civilian, they are suddenly blasted back with a magic attack, catching everyone off guard. They all look around to where the magic originated from, and to the shock of the whole team, Sitri is standing there with her hand outstretched, lightning crackling from her fingertips.
Mother, what on earth are you doing here?
Sitri, hurry and get on out of here. It's not safe, and these madmen won't hesitate to cut you down.
I'm not going anywhere. I can't stand by while you two are out there risking your lives, and if I can help these people, then it's my duty as a nun to aid them. With so much chaos, we're going to need all hands on deck if we hope to save the villagers.
Jeralt clearly isn't happy about this, and the conflict within him escalates with each passing second. Byleth, not wanting for the situation to get out of hand, suddenly speaks up.
We can't afford to start arguing in the middle of battle. Father, you and I will focus on stopping the infected. Mother, please remain in the back line and heal the injured. If any hostiles make it past us, we're counting on you to take them down.
Understood. You can leave the wounded to me. Please be careful out there, you two.
Just be sure to stay away from danger, and don't get carried away trying to be a hero.
As the battle continues, Tomas reveals himself to be Solon, and the Death Knight enters the fray, instantly making a beeline for Byleth, and the professor meets him head-on, doing a better job of holding their own this time, yet she remains out of Jeritza's league, as Byleth struggles to land attacks of any significance and is barely able to deflect each swing of his scythe. Just as the Death Knight goes in for a critical strike, he is blasted in the back and knocked off balance. While this attack did little to injure the Reaper, he turns to see Sitri aiming in his direction, and upon realizing she was the woman he kidnapped, the masked terror begins to chuckle.
So, it seems the delicate maiden has taken up arms after all. It's a pity your courage means nothing in the absence of true strength. Your attempt to save that diva was pathetic. Even now you are a mere fledgling.
Sitri holds her ground but is clearly shaken by the Death Knight's words, thinking back to how she could not protect Flane and becoming worried that if this keeps up, Byleth will be killed too. Before the Death Knight can advance, Jeralt comes charging towards him, attempting the same maneuver as before, but this time the Death Knight dodges it with ease. Byleth's family then regroup and prepare to face him, and despite being unable to best their foe individually, the three of them end up holding their own. Thanks to their training together, the family are well coordinated and boast strong team synergy, with Jeralt primarily pressing the attack, while Sitri and Byleth support him thanks to their ranged advantage. The Death Knight is not being injured, however he cannot find any openings, and every time he tries to switch targets, the remaining fighters cut him off before he can press the attack. Eventually, Solon is defeated by one of the students, and the fight ends in a stalemate, causing the Death Knight to leave. As the situation in Rhea Village begins to simmer, Jeralt remarks that the damage was kept to a minimum and admits that Sitri was a big help, though he remains bitter about her sudden appearance without warning. Byleth, on the other hand, is amazed with how much progress Sitri has made, being very impressed with her mother's display of power and grateful for all her help, and such praise from her daughter causes Sitri to become elated. Just then, the Flame Emperor shows up before Byleth and her parents, and makes the same proclamation as in the main timeline. However, before Byleth can respond, Sitri steps forward.
I don't know what your end goal is, but I can tell that what you seek and the actions of these criminals are not one and the same. Are you certain you can stop them with our help?
Both Byleth and Jeralt are puzzled by this and don't know what to say.
You were correct in deducing that the ones responsible for this catastrophe act in a fashion that is irreprehensible. I cannot guarantee that the causality will cease. However, with the Sword of the Creator by our side, I can assure you that we can put a stop to Solon and the rest of their kind.
Ultimately, Byleth and her parents do not join the Flame Emperor, and they all make their way back to the monastery. But Byleth does contemplate the Flame Emperor's words, especially since Sitri seemed willing to somewhat trust them, and Byleth could also tell that there was no deceit behind the Flame Emperor's words. Once they arrive, Jeralt comments on how Byleth is much happier when instructing the students, and that Sitri is also more lively than normal around them, as beforehand she only ever displayed such enthusiasm towards Rhea, Alfric, and himself. But now it's more commonplace, and Jeralt remarks that maybe they never should have left the monastery to begin with. Sitri then turns away and looks ashamed, knowing that her death is the reason for the rift between Rhea and Jeralt, with the captain nervously trying to act like he didn't mean what he said. But just then one of the Knights of Ceres approaches the family and informs them that Rhea wishes to see them. Once they arrive, Rhea congratulates the family on a job well done.
Welcome, Professor. Jeralt, Sitri. It warms my heart to see you have made it back safely. Your work in Remire village was remarkable. Though this incident was a horrible tragedy, thanks for your effort. We were able to save as many lives as possible. You have my deepest thanks.
The three of them look at each other happily, with Sitri being particularly excited upon receiving Rhea's approval. But suddenly, the Archbishop's tone becomes much more serious.
Despite your chivalrous actions, I find your behavior to be most concerning, Sitri. What on earth were you thinking, leaving the monastery by yourself? You are a fragile woman, and should not go wandering off without my knowledge, let alone recklessly interrupting a very dangerous mission that could have put you and everyone else in danger.
Please forgive me, Lady Rhea. I did not mean to upset you, but I'm more than capable of venturing off on my own and defending myself. Jeralt and Byleth have been helping me become stronger so that I can fight by their side, instead of constantly worrying about them. My heart always aches when I stay behind while they go out and risk their lives, and I cannot stand idly by any longer, not after I failed to protect Helena Manuela. I became a nun in order to aid those in need and save people, but I can only do so much within the monastery, and I must become stronger so I may help people all over Fodlan, Rhea.
You've been training in secret? Sitri! You are in no shape to be doing any sort of strenuous exercise, and as a nun your place remains here within the walls of Garreg Mach. The Knights of Ceres are tasked with protecting the masses and fighting those who seek to cause harm. You shouldn't ever throw yourself in danger so irresponsibly. You could have been killed.
Jeralt then steps forward, ready to defend his wife.
While I too am not thrilled about Sitri interrupting our mission out of the blue, if she wishes to step outside the monastery or take the time to strengthen herself, then who are we to deny her that?
I find it most surprising that you would enable Sitri to act in such a reckless manner, Jeralt. Sitri will not last long were she here to partake in battle regularly, and you of all people are well aware of just how dangerous life outside the monastery is. Sitri will forever be at great risk every time she ventures from her home.
With all due respect, things are much better within Garreg Mach. Ever since I returned to the monastery, there's been one incident after another. The knights are so busy dealing with the enemies of the church that even the students must take part in routing their forces. I doubt most of these kids came to Garreg Mach expecting to undergo these excursions, and what's worse is that the fiends responsible for a number of these attacks have been right underneath the church's nose the entire time, and you were completely oblivious to the fact. If children are regularly being tasked with routing the church's enemies, it's only a matter of time before Sitri must take up arms, no matter how much you try to protect her.
While Jeralt is busy ranting about Rhea's leadership skills, Sophis speaks to Byleth in agreement with Geralt's criticisms. However, Byleth remains still, for the situation is particularly tense, and it's clear that Rhea is becoming visibly more enraged by Jeralt's defamation. Byleth then interjects by asking why Thomas came to the monastery, and Sepep explains the situation, causing the tension to subside. Once all is said and done, everyone leaves, and later that evening, Sitri goes to speak with Byleth in private.
Sorry for coming to you so late this evening, sweetie. I just need to get something off my chest. I've never seen Jeralt speak to Lady Rhea like this before. I know they don't often see eye to eye, but for Jeralt to outwardly defy and condemn her like so worries me. Or anyone else to speak to the Archbishop like so, who knows how she would have reacted.
I'll admit, this is the first time I've ever seen him so agitated. I know Father can occasionally get angry or rather spiteful, but not to this extent. Though part of me understood his frustration towards Rhea. It's not for the archbishops or anyone else to determine how you may live your life, Mother. Plus, when I arrived at the monastery, Jeralt warned me to be suspicious of Lady Rhea, and as each month passes, I'm beginning to understand his warning. I already told you about what happened to Mercedes, but Dad did bring up a good point about all the missions myself and the students have had to do. This isn't the type of ordeal children should be put through.
Sitri doesn't know what to think of this. On the one hand, she's always trusted and loved Rhea for bringing her into this world and being so kind to her, but Sitri can't deny that being scolded by Rhea was upsetting. Adding insult to injury, ever since she came back to life and has been brought up to speed about the events like the tragedy of Duska, as well as what the students have currently revealed about their lives before coming to the monastery, she's been privy to so much sorrow and strife. Having spent the majority of her first life sheltered within the walls of Garreg Mach, the reality she once knew feels more and more like a fantasy. Byleth can see the sorrow and confusion on her mother's face, and so reassures her that for now, they should continue to do as Rhea says, and focus on snuffing out those villains who have been causing all this trouble. This puts Sitri's mind at ease a little, and she hugs her daughter, thanking Byleth for always looking out for her, and that she's so happy she got to live again and be with her child once more, with Byleth grasping her mother tightly and letting herself enjoy this moment of tenderness, truly happy to feel the unconditional and pure love of her mother's warm embrace. As the month of the ethereal moon begins, Rhea informs Byleth of the grand ball the church is planning, as well as what this month's mission will be, in addition to the news that Jeralt shall be accompanying Byleth on this endeavor.
Jeralt has a mission of his own he must undertake. However, he has promised to return in time for the ball, as Sitri wishes to attend and is very excited for the festivities.
Wow, you and Mother are going to be dancing? I always imagined you'd have 2 left feet and would jump at the chance to be away from something like this.
For your information, young lady, I can be quite formal when it comes to social affairs. Normally I'm not into this sort of thing, but your mother can't keep still, and I'm not one to disappoint her.
Sitri was always happiest around you, Jeralt. Her face lit up like the sun when you were side by side. To witness both of you dance among the stars will truly be magical.
Thank you, Rhea. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must depart immediately and not delay my return.
Farewell, Jeralt. May the goddess protect you.
Once Jeralt leaves for his mission, the days go by as normal, with the only change being that Sitri is present for the White Heron Cup instead of Shamir as one of the judges, as Rhea ordered Shamir to assist Jeralt with his mission to ensure its swift completion. The night of the ball has finally arrived, and as the event begins, Byleth and most of the students are present and accounted for. However, Hilda, Annette, Dorothea and Mercedes are nowhere to be seen, along with no sign of Sitri or Lady Rhea. Some time passes, and though everyone is having a good time, the students are starting to get worried about the absence of their respective classmates, with Byleth and Jeralt also troubled by the lack of Sitri's presence. But before they can investigate, Dorothea, Annette, Mercedes and Hilda all enter the ballroom, followed by Rhea, who is escorting none other than Sitri, donning a beautiful dress gifted to her by the Archbishop, while the 4 young ladies who accompanied them applied her makeup. Everyone is speechless at how stunning Sitri looks, with Byleth and Jeralt's mouths gaping at the sight of her, and as Sitri makes her way over to Jeralt, all eyes are fixated on this angelic saint as she practically glides across the hall, as if she were the goddess herself come to bless the land of Fodland. she stops inches away from her husband and begins to twirl her hair, looking rather nervous and blushing tremendously.
Do you think I look nice, dear? I've never really worn anything like this before, so I'm not sure if it's really right for me.
You are even more beautiful than the goddess herself, my love.
The room begins to awe and whisper, while the four ladies giggle at a job well done, as Sitri turns bright red and smiles so endearingly at her husband. She then takes Jeralt's hand as they make their way to the dance floor. All the students give the couple room as they begin to waltz, and despite not being the smoothest pair of lovebirds, neither of them have ever looked happier, with Sitri practically beaming and Jeralt so full of life you could swear he was a young man again. The entire room is silent while basking in such a heartwarming and dazzling display of pure, radiant love, for Byleth is mesmerized by how happy her parents look, not noticing that Rhea has been standing next to her for some time now. She turns towards the Archbishop and the two lock eyes but don't say anything. Rhea's face of sheer bliss encapsulates what everyone is feeling right now. After dancing with Jeralt, Sitri then grabs Byleth and takes her daughter to the center of the room, and though dancing with her mother feels very surreal, Byleth quickly gets used to it and has a lot of fun, with the other students also wanting to dance with Sitri. Flame can barely contain her excitement at the prospect of doing so and is so awestruck by Citri's appearance, and Sitri even convinces Setheth to spare a moment for one little dance. Doing so causes a recollection of the time he and his wife would dance under the night sky, and though thinking of her hurts, he's also happy that Sitri reminded him of such a beautiful time in his life. After the ball is concluded, Sitri is exhausted and settles in for the night with Jeralt. Byleth is also tired from all the attention, and it's at this point where things proceed as normal up until Alois informs Byleth and Jeralt of the sudden appearance of demonic beasts, and they make their way to investigate. Sitri stops them before they can leave, and demands that she come along as well, but this time, Byleth and Jeralt stand firm and insist that she stay behind after what happened in Ramaya village, and though she doesn't like the idea, Sitri stays put, remembering what Byleth said to her and not wanting to create an even greater rift between Rhea and her family, and as they both depart, she prays for their safety. The mission involving the demonic beast goes as expected, and once again, Jeralt is stabbed by Monica, and though Byleth reverses time, the result does not change thanks to Talos' intervention, and as she rushes over to her father and cradles him in her arms, Jeralt comments that this is the first time he's seen Byleth cry, with his final words being,
"Look after your mother. Tell her thank you for blessing me with a family."
And with that, Jeralt dies in Byleth's arms. His body goes cold, but his face remains content and at peace as rain and his daughter's tears trickle down his face. As Byleth and the other students make their way back to the monastery, the professor's mind is racing, not knowing how to face her mother or anyone else after losing Jeralt. Tears continue to stream down her cheeks as the other students watch on solemnly. They all want to say something, but none of them know how to respond. As the group makes their way through the entrance to Garreg Mach, Rhea, Setheth and Sitri are all there to greet them, but they notice something is off. All the students look sullen and defeated. Byleth's head is hanging heavily, and Flame is clutching the professor's arm tightly, trying so hard to hold back her tears. They then notice Jeralt's body lying still and looking pale, as if all the colour in his skin has left him. All three of them quickly put together what's happened. Rhea gasps, Setheth runs over to Jeralt's corpse, and Sitri begins to tremble. She then looks at Byleth as the professor slowly raises her head, locking eyes with her mother. Byleth doesn't say a word, but her face is that of pure heartbreak and anguish, her eyes bloodshot from shedding countless tears and her lips trembling in shock. And once Sitri fully realizes what's happened to Jeralt, she proceeds to faint, with everyone rushing over to aid her while Byleth remains motionless, unable to process all that's happened. Later that day, while everyone is busy tending to Sitri and arranging Jeralt's burial, Byleth makes their way to their room, and for now the story follows the same beats as in canon, with the game's respective House Lord once again offering Byleth solace, but also encouraging them to move forward and be strong even during times of mourning, doubling down on how Sitri will need her daughter more than ever, and Byleth can't avoid her forever. Eventually, Rhea meets with Byleth in private.
Hello, Professor. I see that you are still recovering from the loss of Jeralt. Indeed, we are all saddened by his sudden departure. However, you'll be glad to know that Sitri is recovering well and has even begun to move about freely again. I feel it best for you to tend to her now that the initial shock is over. She will need your help to recover from the loss of her husband, and I feel you too will require her love to help you through this awful ordeal.
I'm sorry, but I can't, Lady Rhea. It's my fault Father is gone. She asked me to keep him safe, and I broke my promise. I failed her. Because of me, she was robbed of the man she loved. If only I had acted faster, I could have...
Please, Professor. There is no need to blame yourself for what happened. You did everything in your power to save him. I miss Jeralt too. He was one of my oldest and dearest friends, and a wonderful knight, who meant as much to me as he did to you and your mother. Sitri would never blame you for what happened, dear child. She loves you just as much as she loved him, so please, be with her and focus on mending both of your hearts.
Byleth shakily nods and then asks Rhea about the contents of Geralt's diary, but before she can explain in full, Alois interrupts with an urgent report, so Byleth leaves and closes the door behind her. Byleth then turns around and sees Sitri standing just a few feet away, and the professor freezes in place. After a few moments of silence, Byleth tries to walk past Sitri, but she grabs her daughter's hand and smiles gently, telling Byleth that
It's not your fault.
Hearing those words leave her mother's mouth causes Byleth to burst into tears and hugs Sitri tightly, saying she's sorry and blaming herself continuously, while Sitri gently holds her daughter close as she lets Byleth cry it all out. Once Byleth calms down, Sitri speaks.
It's going to be okay, sweetie. I miss him too. I wish I came with you. I might have been able to save him. We could all be here right now, smiling and laughing as we used to. We can't turn back the hands of time, and the pain of both you and I are going through may never truly fade. But I know Jeralt wouldn't want me to spend my days moping over him. The fact that I got a second chance at life and could spend more time with my husband and see the woman my daughter became was a miracle from the goddess. I can never forget all the joy he brought into my life and blessing me with the greatest gift of all. You, Byleth.
Byleth dries her eyes and says that in his final moments, he asked her to look after Sitri, and that he's grateful she blessed him with a family. Sitri giggles and reassures Byleth that they need to be strong not just for her sake, but also the students too. Everyone in the monastery is feeling the weight of his death, and they'll all mourn together. During the month of the Guardian Moon, many of the students give their condolences to Byleth and Sitri regarding Geralt's passing, ranging from words of comfort, acts of kindness, tales of their time with the captain, etc. One day, as the two of them head to Geralt's tombstone, they notice Bernadetta kneeling by it and placing flowers on his grave.
Oh, hello, Professor. Hello, Lady Sitri. I brought some flowers for Jeralt. It's the least I could do. Sometimes I feel all I do is run away.
Oh, Bernadetta, thank you so very much. That's so kind of you. You're such a sweet girl, and I know Jeralt would appreciate the gesture.
Thank you, Lady Sitri. I, also brought an extra bunch of flowers for you, since I know how much you like flowers.
My, how lovely of you, Bernadetta. Thank you so much. You really made my day. You truly are such a sweet young lady.
Sitri takes the flowers, then softly kisses Bernadetta on the forehead, with little Miss Varley turning bright red and briskly retreats to her room, as Byleth and Sitri giggle at how adorable she is. Later that week, Leonie approaches the two of them.
Professor, Sitri, I came to apologize. I've been so selfish with how desperately I desired to prove myself better than you, Professor. I was rude and thoughtless, and I only cared about making myself look better. Now that the captain's gone, I'm sorry. I know this must be even harder on both of you, but I can't.
Before she can finish, Sitri gently places a hand on Leonie's cheek and smiles softly.
It's okay, Leonie. I know that you looked up to Jeralt with such pride. He told me that you were his best student, and when I look at you, I see a strong and courageous young woman who will one day become a great mercenary. You've done the captain proud time and time again, Leonie.
I'm also sorry. I was so dismissive of how much Jeralt meant to you. For the longest time, I took our relationship for granted. But now that he's gone, I miss him more than ever. But we must keep pressing forward. He would come down hard on us for slacking off and wasting our days moping away.
Leonie sniffs as she dries her tears.
Yeah, you're right. The captain was never one for wallowing, and if I don't keep working hard, all his training will be for naught. Thank you, both of you. I promise I'll do all I can to honor his name.
During this very trying time for the pair, it should be noted that while everyone is helping Byleth and Sitri recover, and some like Leonie and Bernadetta go that one step further, Flayn and Sefif are also very active in comforting Sitri and Byleth, as Flayn knows what it's like to lose a parent, and Sefif can relate to the feeling of losing a spouse, with Flayn being particularly upset since she's so close to Sitri, and just recently her and Jeralt shared such a magical night together. To Flayn, this feels like a cruel twist of fate, but Sitri assures the little one that she need not worry so much, and that so long as she holds the memories of Jeralt within her heart, she'll never truly be alone. Hearing Sitri utter those words strikes a chord with Flayn, for the thought of losing her loved ones and being alone terrifies the young lady. Thus Sitri's proclamation strikes deep at Flayn's core, as she holds Byleth's mother tightly and whispers,
I love you, Sitri.
Sitri gently strokes Flayn's head and returns the feeling.
I love you too, Flayn.
Since everyone is so tentative towards Sitri during this month, she essentially reaches B rank support status with all the students and church members, provided it's not TimeSkip related, and in doing so, she learns some very dark details about their lives. This new information, when piled on top of the experiences and revelations granted by her second life, stirs much doubt within Sitri, who can't help but feel that Fodland isn't the wondrous place she initially thought it to be, and is even more concerned that Rhea may be indirectly responsible for much of this strife, contemplating what will become of her and Byleth's future. As the month of the Guardian Moon draws to a close, the respective House Lords inform Byleth that Solon and Monica have been spotted in the sealed forest and that they should depart immediately. Rhea interjects, proclaiming that it's far too risky, and expresses concern that Byleth will be consumed by revenge, which shall lead to something horrible, but the House Lords protest that this opportunity is far too fortunate to ignore. Sitri is present for this discussion, and deep down she also wishes for Byleth to stay put, but she can see in her daughter's eyes that they will not be deterred, and so she assures Rhea that this is the best chance they have at defeating such a dangerous foe, swaying Rhea into agreeing with the professor's course of action. Before they head out, Sitri gently clasps Byleth's hands, pleading for her daughter to come back safely, and Byleth responds by hugging her mother and assuring Sitri she'll be fine. Once the students reach the sealed forest, the chapter parallels the format of the official narrative. However, Byleth is particularly cautious when fighting Kronya, not willing to take any chances for her mother's sake, and so she remains at a distance and is holding back. Kronya uses this opportunity to get under Byleth's skin, thinking she has the Ashen Demon bested.
Is that everything you've got? Gods, you are so weak. Then again, that doesn't surprise me. Your father was a miserable old fool who died like a pathetic sap. I'll make sure you suffer the same fate, and once my blade is covered in your blood, I'll set my sights on that precious mother of yours. Oh, how I look forward to hearing her scream!
Kronya's words do little to faze Byleth, but the second she threatens Sitri's life, the professor snaps and attacks Kronya with a seething rage. Striking Kronya with such ferocity, the assassin can barely keep up, and Byleth eventually severs the tendons in her right arm and slices her across the back. Despite dealing such a crippling blow, Byleth's assault on Kronya persists, but in doing so, Byleth loses sight of their surroundings, and just like in canon, this leads Byleth to the stone arena where Solon activates the spell of Zaharos, killing Kronya and trapping Byleth within a void of darkness. Once Byleth regains consciousness, Sophis scolds them for acting so recklessly, chastising the professor for giving into anger and going on a rampage like a wild beast, reminding Byleth that they promised to come back safely for Sitri's sake. It suddenly dawns on Byleth how reckless they've been. Now her mother will be alone, and Byleth proceeds to scream in frustration, slamming her fists into the void that surrounds them and yelling into the darkness, cursing and flailing desperately, furious with how stupid they've been and dreading that they'll never see their mother again. While Sophis takes no pleasure in watching the professor have a temper tantrum, she does feel sympathy towards Byleth's situation and can't help but share in her remorse. Realizing what must be done, the two souls fuse together and Byleth becomes the enlightened one, and from here, everything gets back on track up until Byleth is returned to the monastery and awakes to the sound of Rhea singing, as she gently cradles Byleth in her lap. As the month of the Pegasus moon dawns on Fodland, the story progresses as expected, with Setheth trying to get information out of Rhea regarding what has happened to Byleth and how it coincides with the notes in Jeralt's diary. However, his endeavour is unsuccessful, and Rhea informs Byleth that they shall journey to the Holy Tomb at the end of the month, where she shall receive a revelation from the goddess. Byleth then goes to see Sitri, whom she has not spoken to due to being unconscious shortly after transforming, only waking up to Rhea singing for a brief moment before returning to her slumber. Sitri has witnessed Byleth's new appearance during the professor's incapacitation, and yet she remains starstruck at her daughter's new form as she approaches.
Mother, it's good to see you again. I apologize for not coming sooner. I hope I didn't make you worry.
Ah, sweetie, how I missed you. No need to apologize, darling. I'm just happy you came home and that you're safe. Though I wasn't expecting your hair to change so drastically.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't expecting this either, but it was a necessity so that I could see you again, and doing so gave me the power to stop Monica and Solon.
Well, I'm glad it turned out for the best. I do find it rather funny that you now resemble the likes of Lady Rhea and even myself. I don't know why, but there's something sentimental about your new look.
I'm not sure what to make of this new form, but I think you pull the style off much better, Mother. I wish my hair was as silky smooth as yours.
You can blame your father for that one. You won't believe how jagged his hair looked when I first met him. More importantly, sweetie, how on earth did this change come about?
Byleth looks at the ground and bites the rim of her lip, not sure how to explain the situation to her mother and worried as to how she may react to such impactful news. Just then, Sitri lifts Byleth's chin and looks at her warmly with such a soft smile, and deep down Byleth knows she can trust her mother completely.
Mother, does the name Sothis mean anything to you?
Sothis? Yes, that's the name of the goddess of Fodlan, or at least it's her real name. Rhea told me about Sothis and everything she did for the land of Fodlan.
Well, ever since I joined the monastery, and shortly before that, a small child would appear to me in my dreams. She called herself Sothis and looked very much like us, green hair and all. Throughout my time here, she and I have been trying to uncover her past, and her wisdom has guided me through each endeavor. In fact, when I was facing Monica and Solon, they mentioned killing you and I ended up losing control. And in my haste to defeat them, they took advantage of my foolishness and trapped me in a void of darkness. It was thanks to Sothis that I was able to transform and escape. I can no longer hear her voice, but she saved my life countless times, and more importantly, she's the reason I was able to come back to you. I should have been more careful, but the thought of those monsters causing you harm got the better of me.
Oh, sweetie, that's incredible. To think my daughter would be able to hear the voice of the goddess? Rhea would ask me if I could hear Sothis, but that never happened. I'm so proud of you, darling. You truly are so special.
Thank you, Mother. That means a lot to me.
The two of them hug and Byleth basks in her mother's warmth once again. The professor asks if Sitri will come to the Holy Tomb as well, but she declines, stating that this is a moment just for Byleth and she's not a fan of being in underground places after what happened with Flame. The rest of the month moves along without incident, but right as Byleth and Rhea depart for the Holy Tomb, Sitri spots Flame by herself and notices that the young lady looks worried about something. Side note, at this point Byleth and Sitri know that Flame is Setheth's daughter.
Flame? Honey, what's the matter? I thought you'd be joining the professor and Rhea at the Holy Tomb.
Oh my! Hello, Sitri. I'm sorry, but I don't feel like being present for the ceremony.
You see, my father and Rhea have been arguing a lot recently. I'm aware that they are prone to disagreements, but as of late, I sense considerable tension between them. Though what I find most upsetting is that I believe much of the discourse concerns the professor.
They're arguing about Byleth? What on earth would cause the two of them to become so confrontational about my daughter?
I am afraid I do not know, Sitri. Based on what I've overheard, all I could pick up on was something to do with a diary Jeralt wrote.
Jeralt's diary? Do you know where Seth is at the moment, Flame?
Knowing my father, he should be in his office at this time of day. Why do you wish to know his location?
Because I must discern why my daughter has caused the Archbishop and your father to become so divided.
And so, Sitri and Flame head directly to Seth, who was, as Flame predicted, in his study going through Jeralt's diary once again. As he hears footsteps approaching, he hides the diary in his desk drawer as Sitri and Flame enter.
Ah, greetings, Flame, and you, Lady Sitri. I must say I am surprised to see you both here. I was under the assumption you would be joining Rhea and the Professor for the ceremony at the Holy Tomb.
My apologies for turning up so suddenly, Seth, but I must ask you to answer me truthfully. How much do you know regarding the circumstances of Byleth's birth?
Seth's eyes widen, but he remains composed.
Pardon me, Sitri, but I'm afraid I do not have any knowledge regarding the Professor's conception. I find it rather strange that you would ask such a question considering you are their birth mother and—
Please, Father, there is no need to feign ignorance. As of late, I've overheard you and the Archbishop arguing continuously about the Professor, and how their recent change relates to the notes in Jeralt's diary.
Seth looks at Flame, and then closes his eyes and breathes heavily.
Flame, you know it's not polite to eavesdrop on other people's conversations, but there's little that can be done about that now.
He opens the drawer in his desk and pulls out Jeralt's diary.
After the Professor underwent their transformation, I investigated the matter and happened upon Jeralt's diary, the contents of which explained that when Byleth was born, you died shortly afterwards, and that the child did not laugh nor cry. In fact, despite having a pulse, they bore no heartbeat. It then goes on to describe how Jeralt escaped with the Professor and avoided the church for so long, and notes that his admiration for Lady Rhea has transformed into fear.
Sitri then clasps her hands together and lets out a loud sigh.
Allow me to give you the full story. You see, when I gave birth to Byleth, she had no heartbeat, and I was worried that they would die. And since I was so frail, the act of childbearing left me with little time in this world. I said to Lady Rhea, take my heart and give it to my child, in the hopes that this act would save them. Rhea then removed something from my chest, but it was not my heart, as from what I saw it resembled that of a stone with strange markings on it. I soon died after the stone was removed, but knowing my daughter was alive allowed me to rest in peace.
A strange stone with markings placed inside of a living being. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that you had a crest stone in your body long before Byleth was born? And what's more, Rhea knew about this?
A crest stone? I had no idea that was inside my body all this time. I'm not exactly sure why I had one to begin with, but I think it may have something to do with hearing the voice of the goddess. Rhea would ask me if I could hear the voice of Sothis, but I wasn't able to. However, earlier this month, Byleth told me that all this time she could hear and even see the goddess, and that it was by fusing with her she was able to transform into the state she is now.
Oh my! I never knew the Professor possessed that kind of power! To think the goddess was speaking to them this entire time! I can't imagine what it would be like to have another being speak to me from within my own mind, though it would be nice to always have someone by your side even when you are asleep.
While Flame is discussing this revelation with Sitri, Seth's eyes are glaring intensely at the floor, and his body has gone stone cold, his mind racing in an attempt to piece everything together. Seconds later, his head jolts up and he exclaims,
No, she wouldn't.
Sitri and Flame are startled by a sudden outburst, but Seth quickly composes himself, stating that while he hasn't got all the evidence, he thinks that Byleth is one in a long line of vessels Rhea has created as a means to establish a connection with the soul of the goddess, and it's clear that the Professor is the most successful attempt thus far. Flame then asks what's going to happen to the Professor and why Rhea took them to the Holy Tomb, with Seth stating that though it's merely a theory, Rhea probably plans to use the crest stone within Byleth to act as a conduit for Sophie's soul, and doing so will allow her mind to replace Byleth's, creating the progenitor god. Sitri's face changes from confusion to absolute horror at the thought of having Byleth's state of being erased, as she turns and runs out of the monastery, reaching speeds neither Flame nor Seth thought Sitri could ever achieve, with the two of them following close behind as they all make their way to the Holy Tomb, hoping they're not too late to stop the ceremony. Within the Holy Tomb, the ritual is proceeding as expected, with Byleth approaching the throne as Rhea's excitement surges at the prospect of Sophis returning, but as Byleth readies herself to sit on the throne, the silence is broken by a loud scream.
Byleth, don't! I can't lose you too!
Byleth quickly stands up before they are seated and looks towards the back of the tomb as Sitri, Flame, and Sethith enter. The corresponding students and house lords are shocked to see them all, Rhea especially, who asks why they have suddenly appeared.
I'm sorry, Rhea, but I can't let you go through with this. I had my suspicions about your true intentions after reading Jeralt's diary, but Sitri has confirmed the circumstances of the professor's birth, and I know about the creststone residing in their heart, hearing the voice of Sothis, and what sitting on that throne might do to the professor's soul.
Byleth then clutches her chest and turns towards Rhea, her face both confused and angry as she questions the Archbishop.
What is he talking about? What's going to happen to me once I sit on that throne?
You have nothing to fear, dear child. You will receive a revelation from the goddess, and doing so will allow you to achieve enlightenment and be granted a divine power.
That's not true at all. Byleth, well, I don't know the whole story. You and I are vessels created for the sole purpose of acting as the avatars for the goddess Sothis. Sitting on that throne will allow her soul to take over your entire body and become the progenitor god.
Byleth remains confused by this overload of information and is trying to process everything.
Why do this, Rhea? Why go through all this trouble to revive the goddess?
Before Rhea has the chance to fabricate an explanation, Flame speaks up.
I know why she chose this course of action. It's because Sothis is the mother of Rhea, though it is more accurate to say Sothis is the mother of Saros.
Everyone gasps at the reveal of Rhea's true intentions and her real name. Byleth lowers their head and thinks for a few seconds. She then looks up and glares at Rhea.
Is this all I was to you? A mere shell whose very life was part of your scheme to revive a long-since dead deity? Was Mother little more than a tool for you to fulfill your selfish desires? How many vessels were there before us? What else have you lied to me about my life?
Rhea has been caught red-handed and is now beginning to boil with anger, but instead of addressing Byleth, she turns towards Sitri, Flame, and Sethith, scowling at them.
How dare you betray me like this? It was by my gracious hand that you came into this world, Sitri, and once again I was responsible for granting you the gift of life after Alfric's intervention. I treated you like my daughter, and this is how you repay my kindness? To deny me the one I hold most dear to my heart. And what of you, Keyhole and Setline? You dare turn against your own kind and prevent the revival of the very being responsible for your existence?
Saros, I love you. You are like family to me. But I cannot condone the revival of one of our own at the cost of someone's life. I know how much it hurts to lose a loved one, and how powerful the desire to bring them back is. I was beyond distraught after my mother passed during the War of Heroes. I would love nothing more than to be wrapped in her arms once again. But to sacrifice one's life in doing so is wrong.
Rhea is not convinced and refutes Flame's plea.
Those vile Agarthans and that thief Nemesis butchered my mother and our fellow brothers and sisters, fashioned the remains into those abominable heroes' relics, and even after all those years, those monsters remain in the shadows while Sothis was taken from me. I will not have it. I will get her back. I will see my mother return to this world.
But think of what we'll lose in doing so! I owe my life to the professor. All of us within the academy have only made it this far thanks to them. Sitri already lost her husband. Do you really wish to take the only family she has left to?
Saros, no. Lady Rhea, I love you so much. You gave me life, have treated me so wonderfully, and saved my daughter. I owe you everything, but the life of my child matters more to me than anything in this world. I was granted a second chance to live alongside Byleth, and seeing the woman she's grown into has been such a blessing. You may think of me what you will, but no goddess is worth the life of my daughter.
Rhea then grunts as she begins to realize the weight of her actions. Though the desire to see Sophis again is eating away at her, deep down, she knows that this isn't right. Sephiroth then steps forward.
Please, Seros, stop this now and tell the professor the whole truth. You don't want to go down this path.
Before Rhea can make any sort of decision, the sound of footsteps come charging towards them as they turn and see the Empire's soldiers.
Don't move, any of you. If you move, your lives will be forfeit.
And that's where we'll bookmark today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I greatly appreciate the feedback from the first episode. It was a big help in writing the script for this project. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to post your ideas regarding how events could proceed for any of the 4 story routes. I find these discussions and ideas to be fascinating. I'd like to give a shout out and a very special thank you to all the voice actors who contributed to this project. You each did such an incredible job. So big thank you to Mari Sky, Ephemeral Blitz, Goosaphone, The King Bahamut, Degenerate Peach, Maggie Fall, Valora, and Mystic Blue 484. Thank you all so much for your help. You are all just so incredible. Please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe too, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Discord and Amino, Twitch where I live stream 6 times a week, and I would very much appreciate it if you donated to my Patreon to help make these videos possible and receive some additional bonuses for doing so. And of course I'd like to say an absolutely humongous thank you to all my patrons who help make these videos possible, been supporting the channel all this time, and just thank you all so much for the feedback, for the advice, for everything, for helping, really motivate me to keep going with this project. Now we've got the pre-TimeSkip stuff done, the likes will determine where we go next, but thank you all so much for just always supporting these passion projects of mine. I'm sorry if some videos that are highly anticipated get pushed to the side in favor of that, but I'm glad that you're also understanding and just also wonderful. You're just an amazing community that I've built, whether it's just free interacting with messages or live streams, whichever. Just everything about all of you is so amazing. Thank you all so much. And I'd like to say a very special thank you to Wolffox, Shadow Dragon, Twisted Scarecrow, Lucina21, K-Dog, Degenerate Peach, VC Videos 100, Specky X3, Midnight Castle, Maggie Fall, Jeremy Redinger, Farron8392, Zenny Dragon, and Cameron Reynolds. Thank you all so much. Mwah! I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.